the news from Joe Manchin that comes at a time, of course, that the Democrats who've complained about Joe Manchin, he's such an impediment to so much, but he does have a D in front of his name. He has said that he's leaving the Senate, and that will open up a seat in the Senate in red West Virginia. And you've talked about this, Michael. I know, I think, Jim, you have weighed in as well, but I remember distinctly Michael revisiting often the fact that despite the fact that Democrats complain about Joe Manchin, the D in front of his name has given the Democrats great advantage through the years that he's served. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he is part of the reason the Democrats have the majority. He's one, 51st of that. The Democrats don't hold the White House; they're able to hold their other Senate seats, but the Republicans win this Senate seat. But the Democrats were to lose the White House, this would give control of the Senate to the Republicans if everything stays the same. I mean, he is a Democrat. He's not the kind of Democrat that a lot of Democrats like to consider a Democrat. He's a very faint D. When you do the COVID test and you get that faint positive, he's got that faint positive there. And this is I would say a part of the, and I don't throw these compliments around on bias. I throw them. Mitch McConnell's very good at his job. Mitch McConnell realized that Jim Justice would be somebody who could beat Joe Manchin and give the Republicans back their majority. He went into West Virginia, tried very hard, along with Steve Daines from Montana, who runs the Republican Senate Campaign Committee, and they said, "Look, we need you to run, Jim," and that is why Joe Manchin is leaving, because it really does not look like he could poll well, and it means that now you have to look at places like Texas and Ted Cruz, or Florida and Rick Scott, to see a Democratic pickup. So I wouldn't say it's those are rosy skies. And Montana means they have to hold John Tester. Ohio means they have to hold Sherrod Brown. Nevada means they have to hold on to the seat there. And so it's tough sledding.
Before I hear from Jim, I'm so glad you mentioned the McConnell thing, because it's so clear that McConnell laid the groundwork for this and made sure this happened. This is the 3D chess of politics that McConnell does very well. I mean, it's given him the Supreme Court, after all. I wonder if you can speak to, was it Texas? I thought that there might even be a chance to pick up a Democratic seat.
I covered Beto O'Rourke's campaign when he ran 6 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever it was. And I really thought he was a well-positioned, unique sort of politician. He was giving RFK Sr. like speeches on the stump. He was, I think, getting national attention. While Colin Allred is a good candidate, I don't see the magic there that's going to depose Ted Cruz unless the electorate has changed so much. Texas has been supposed to be turning blue now for the last, 20 election cycles. It's not. It's a red state. And I think it's going to be very tough there. Florida, also tough. Rick Scott's going to be there. It will be interesting to see how he's looked at. People criticize Joe Manchin. I've even seen in the comments here, good riddance. He's not a Democrat. He's a dino like a rhino. They're not wrong, the people that criticize him. I mean, he undid a lot of what Joe Biden tried to do, along with Kyrsten Sinema. But one thing to remember is the having the majority in the Senate is vitally important. It means that you chair all the committees, you set the agenda, and you're able to do a lot more business and also play more defense. So while you're not going to like every Democrat or every Republican, if you're a Republican, that majority is really important. And this is a big hit that the Democrats take on keeping the majority.
Yeah, we've spoken about it before. And as I say, I remember you speaking about it often. Jim, what about, just because we're on Manchin, and Manchin takes more fossil fuel money than anybody else in Congress, and again, these are all things that don't speak so well from him, but probably are less bothersome. Maybe if you were to run as an independent, I mean, I'm talking about as a presidential candidate. He said he's not interested, but I wonder if you could just give me a little bit of the arithmetic on the presidential side in terms of a third-party run or someone like Manchin who comes across as a moderate getting into that race for president.
Well, how's he going to out-moderate Joe Biden? I mean, he's not a threat to Joe Biden's main constituency. If there was a very good progressive candidate, that might be a threat to Joe Biden. But there isn't, and I don't think Manchin is much of a threat at all as far as that. If you're going to vote moderate, you're going to vote Joe Biden. Manchin is in the pocket of every energy lobby in the country. He supports coal. He supports fouling our air. I don't know how you do that unless you have a monetary interest, which he does. Oil,
he also has a geographical interest. When you're the senator from West Virginia, you're going to be kinder to coal, but that doesn't play nationally.
Doesn't excuse it. Doesn't excuse what he's doing to our health and well-being. And I don't care where he's from, but I understand that he's playing to his audience, but mostly he's playing to the people who give him money, and that's what he's doing mostly. So as far as I'm concerned, good riddance. Now, I take Michael's point that this is going to make it much more difficult for the Senate. But Democrats love to panic. Don't panic. I think Sherrod Brown's going to do very well. I think that the Ohio election just recently showed that Democrats are going to come out of the woodwork to vote for people who support abortion rights. The Democrats are on a winning streak, and they'll continue on that. Secondly, while the Senate is in more jeopardy, the House, very good chance that the House is going to turn over. They're going to lose Santos in Long Island. They're going to lose several New York congressional races that turned over in the last election. They're going to come back to being Democrats. They're going to spend a lot of money this time in those areas and bring them back. I think the House has a very good chance. And so even if you lose Manchin and you have Kamala Harris sitting up there, or whoever the next Democrat vice president is, probably Kamala Harris, then you still have the Senate. It's still 50-50, and you have the Senate, and you have the House, and I believe you'll have the presidency. So again, as I said before this last election on Tuesday, stop panicking, Democrats, and work. If you work and you get out that message about the policies that the Democrats support, they're going to win.
I mean, that seems a little pie in the sky, I have to say. You look at the map, you got to win Tester and Brown. You also have to hold on to the notion there wouldn't be an upset. Michigan, Debbie Stabinov's seat is a possible upset. She's not running, but it's still a possible upset. I think that there are no real places where the Democrats could pull a surprise. They've got North Dakota up, they've got Utah up, they've got Wyoming and Nebraska and Mississippi and, Missouri, where some people thought, oh, maybe, but that doesn't look like that's going to happen. Indiana, not at all. I think that that's where the Democrats, yes, they are negative. There's something realistic about this negativity. They have to win Arizona. They have to hold on to that seat in order to make this happen. And Montana and Ohio have to come home for them as well. So it is a tougher map this time, Jim.
I don't disagree with that. I just don't think it's worth, at this point, throwing in the towel. And I think Arizona, of course, we're way ahead in Arizona. The Democrat is winning despite the fact that there's two candidates against him.
Right.
So I think Arizona is not a problem. I think Ohio, Sherrod Brown is not going to have an issue. I think you're right about Montana, Florida, Texas. Texas always looks promising and then fades away. But maybe this is the time, and we ought to be working. Democrats ought to be working their message in those places and not throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
The question as to whether or not the government will shut down goes back to the House, and the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is heading. He adjourned the House early, and he's headed to Paris. They have this. There are going to be 22 speakers at this. They call it World Freedom Initiative, but like all the speakers are these right-wing autocrats. I mean, from Hungary, if you're coming in from Hungary and you're the ruling party in Hungary, you're part of the autocracy of Hungary. I mean, it's a really brutal scene right now. So, my point is twofold. One, please remark on that if you'd like. I mean, this will be Kristi Noem's going to go to this, and Alex Mooney, who's from West Virginia, and people from the Trump campaign are going to be there. Again, this is over in Paris. And Mike Johnson will be there. And the reason Johnson, I mean, in addition to it perhaps being interesting, is because he does have this problem. I mean, hanging over all of us is the very real possibility of the government not being funded after the 17th. I wonder if you could speak to that, Michael.
Yeah, I think that is a very real problem, and you can't run away from your problems entirely. But what Mike Johnson doesn't have on his resume is being a good fundraiser and being a good national party guy. And this is part of him building that up, even though it's international, it's going to Paris. It's high profile. And he has to start doing the work of being speaker, which means being the face of the Republican Party right now. And so it's an opportunity. It doesn't mean that the government shutdown's not happening. It doesn't mean there's great ammo for Democrats. But these are the sorts of situations that if it were reversed, Republicans would get great news cycles out of criticizing Mike Johnson or a Democratic speaker for going to Paris, right? It remains to be seen if that is part of the Democratic plan here. But in terms of PR, it isn't great PR. Johnson has said that he's exuded confidence that they're going to revert a shutdown. But this is where, again, the frail hold that he has on his caucus is going to be tested during this. And there's no indication that anything has changed just because he's the speaker. The same people who have no problem shutting down the government over the issues that were there before he was elected speaker, that they're not gone. Those issues aren't gone. So it's hard to see how the Republicans are going to avoid being responsible for a government shutdown.
And the government shutdown is likely, isn't it, Jim Avila? Somebody on mute him. There you go.
There we go. We still have the same problem.
And we missed it because it was muted.
Yeah, I said something totally untrue. That's right, Michael.
I love it when mommy and daddy fight. Go ahead. Go ahead,
at any rate, I think what Michael says is true, is that as long as you've got those naysayers in the Republican conference, how's this any better for this guy than it was for anybody else? In order to make a deal to keep open the government, he's going to have to make a deal with the Democrats. If he makes a deal with the Democrats, that's going to cast his speakership in doubt already. It's so soon. So we're in the same position we were in before. Is Johnson willing to throw away his speakership as Kevin McCarthy was willing to do by making a deal with Democrats? We'll have to see. He's a scary guy. He flies under the radar because, he's a quiet right-wing fanatic, but he still remains a right-wing fanatic who barely has a bank account. So, we're in a scary place in the House, and it's really not going to be fixed until 2024 when the Democrats take over the House.
So my question was about the likelihood of the government shutting down. It sounds to me, I mean, you've both articulated.
I think I said yes.
You said yes. Okay. So that problem with Congress overseas, it changes nothing. I mean, in other words, I don't know how you get the coalition together to, now they have this laddered, budget, which essentially suggests that the government will be funded in stages almost. Isn't that right, Michael?
Yeah, but that's not going to solve the inherent problem. The problem that the most conservative members of the Republican caucus have has nothing to do with any sort of system to keep the government open. It is a fundamental difference that they have, that they are in a powerful minority within their own majority in the House. And so it's very, very tenuous. And so it doesn't matter if there are, at this point anyway, if there's any kind of relief, right? If there's any kind of plan to keep it open, because to them it's about fundamentals. It's not about some cute way of keeping the government open. They are fundamentally opposed to the things that would be in there.
I was just about to get to this. Thank you, Vilma. I heard somewhere that Trump was going to ask Tucker Carlson to be his running mate in 2024. What do you think of this, if it is true? Jim Avila?
As long as Donald Trump is at the top of the ticket, I don't think it really matters who's below him. I think that Donald Trump is kryptonite, and that as long as he's on the ballot, the Republicans are not going to win. And they need to be shaken up by a conviction in order for them to put a real candidate. If there was a moderate Republican candidate in the field right now who would win the primary, they could very easily win the general election. Joe Biden's numbers are that bad, but as long as they have Donald Trump on the ticket, his numbers are worse as far as negativity. So that doesn't matter. Tucker Carlson's there. He appeals to the same 35% that Donald Trump appeals to, and that's not what he needs to do. He needs to find someone who appeals to independents and to a broader section of even the Republican Party, and Tucker Carlson is not that guy.
Michael Shure, Jim is so right about the fact that the Democrats did show up, and they showed you in Ohio how they show up, and they reminded us how powerful that rolling back of Roe was. But, when you actually look at the numbers, it was pretty close. I mean, some of these spots came down to just a handful of votes.
Everything is close, but right now, and everything in those states should be close. I mean, you're talking about winning a governor's seat, a Democrat winning a governor's seat in Kentucky. You're talking about Ohio and abortion. These are not states that are necessarily very blue ever. So these issues speak more than anything. So I'm not.
And it wasn't close in Ohio. It was
in Ohio. I'm just saying I'm not moved by where it was close, and it wasn't close in Ohio actually. But what I think what happened on Tuesday tells, or should tell, Republicans, though they're pretty intransigent on the issue, is that Roe and abortion is something that is on the minds of many people. And to go back to your thesis question here, if this is about Tucker Carlson, I don't think he's going to be the one to change minds on Roe or to soften the blow of Roe. I would imagine that you would see somebody like Kristi Noem, for example, as a better choice for Trump, were he to get the nomination. I don't know that he makes the best choice all the time either.
I would just mention that it was in the subpoenas associated with the libel damages on Fox News, and I know that case now, everything seems like it was a million years ago, but the revelations that came out of that were associated with the fact that Tucker Carlson's communications revealed that he hated Donald Trump. He viewed him as a complete pain in the butt, a joke, a moron. I mean, almost every disparaging thing you can say about another person was said by Tucker Carlson about Donald Trump.
And Mark, I have to tell you that one thing we know about Donald Trump is he doesn't like getting upstaged, and Tucker Carlson is perhaps somebody who could upstage him. So I don't see the fit there on an interpersonal way either.
Look who he picked the first time. Mike Pence was certainly not going to upstage anybody.
Right. No, it's such a good point. Yeah.
So I think that is a very good point. One other point on abortion is that Youngkin tried very hard to fool the voters, to kind of smooth over what he really wanted for abortion, not to come out as a flamethrower, to sweet talk abortion in there so that he could get the House and the Senate in Virginia to vote for a 15-week abortion ban or something along those lines. Women are not having it. Stay off my body is what they're saying. And that is a firm position. And as long as the Republicans, even if they try to soften, as long as they stay with that position, they're doomed.
Yeah, it's interesting, Michael. That would seem to be strategy. Remind voters of that decision and who has control over the court and the
Yeah, I mean,
courts, plural.
and, right, and if things stay as they are, we start looking at Sonia Sotomayor's seat, and another seat on the Supreme Court could become a campaign issue. The Democrats are not as good at making the court an issue. They're not as good as the Republicans are at doing that. And that, like Jim is saying, it is a campaign issue. It's very important.
The ads will start as soon as the primaries are over, as soon as Donald Trump is announced. You will hear replayed over and over. I'm responsible for Roe versus Wade. That's what Donald Trump says. He's trying to backpedal now and soften his position. But he says, I'm the one who got Roe versus Wade overturned, and women will remember that. He's also the one who told Chris Matthews back in 2016 that he thought women should be prosecuted for having abortions. Those he will be reminded of that every day, and he will lose the election because of that and because of his stance against democracy.
With that, I will thank you guys. I did want to touch on one thing. Let me just do this quickly. It was the remarks that Trump made, public remarks he made about weaponizing the Justice Department and the fact that he would go after his political rivals were he to regain power. He backed into it by saying, well, they've weaponized it now, and I think if I were in power, I think now that genie's out of the box is what he used. I think it's genie out of the bottle, but all right. With Trump, it's genie out of the box. And he says, I think I would do that. I'd go out. Kim, do you have that? Trump actually is making these comments publicly?
He's opened the Pandora's bottle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kim, can you play it or not? No? Anyway, he says... well, he's unleashed something that everybody, we've all known about this for 100 years, Trump says. We've watched other countries do it, and in some cases effective, and in other cases the country's overthrown, or it's been totally ineffective. But when you actually see the words, you see Trump's mind meandering through the troubled logic.
The bottom line with this stuff is that if independents have Trump fatigue, and fatigue of this period in political life that we're all living through, this isn't going to help. The promise of further litigation and investigation and ethics and all of that, and I think it is red meat for his followers and his supporters, but it also, I think, is not something that most people want to hear, regardless of what party they're in, or certainly independents, I should say.
Sure, I mean, it suggests it suggests an autocrat. Here, I guess Kim's got it.
They've weaponized the Justice Department. They've weaponized the FBI, and they've come at me with the worst indictments. If they want to follow through on this, it could certainly happen in reverse. It could certainly happen in reverse. What they've done is they've released the genie out of the box. They have done something that allows the next party. I mean, if I happen to be president and I see somebody who's doing well and beating me very badly, I say, go down and indict them. Mostly that would be, they would be out of business. They'd be out. They'd be out of the election. In my case, they were such pathetic indictments.
Okay. There you go.
Weaponized
Then you got a sense of it. Yeah. So, yeah, you're saying that doesn't land well with independents, and independents. It's all about
I don't
that.
think so. Mostly not on substance, but just on the more of the same fatigue that people have.
Right.
I think, and that's my hunch more than it is, that there's evidence that I'm right. But it is, I think a well-studied political hunch that people do get tired of this stuff at a certain point, and especially the people that you need to win back.
Last thing I'll just mention to you guys, Jill Stein has announced that she will run for the presidency. She is the Green Party nominee, two-time presidential nominee from the Green Party, and she will begin her run. The political system is broken, she says. The two Wall Street parties are bought and paid for. The Democrats have betrayed their promises for working people, youth, and the climate again and again, while Republicans don't even make such promises in the first place. So,
workers just got a big victory in the auto industry. I don't know how long.
And in Hollywood,
and in Hollywood, and you had a president who actually went and got with the UAW. I mean, openly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
But I think
progressives, they would have to have a real candidate. Jill Stein had her chance, and she messed it up in 2016. Democrats don't forget that. They know what problems she caused. It would have to be an Elizabeth Warren / Bernie Sanders type candidate who found an issue that was really putting them at odds with Joe Biden before progressives had somewhere to go. They're not going to go for Jill Stein.
This
Jill
just
Stein,
real quick.
I would say I'm going to say is the favorite for the Green Party nomination.
What did you say? Who is?
Jill Stein. I
Jill
think
Stein,
you have to call her the favorite.
Okay, yeah. And finally, this Randy says, because I saw this is a high-profile thing. Rick Santorum was saying that the Ohio issue, the abortion law passing, is a bad idea because pure democracies are bad, and we shouldn't leave stuff like that up to the voters. Yeah, of course not. You wouldn't want that left to the voters because they can actually tell you what they want. Rick Santorum. So every place that this abortion issue shows up as a referendum, it will be voted upon to protect a woman's right to her body. Don't you think, guys?
I think so, and I think one of the things that Democrats should be doing is put in places where they can put more referenda on the ballot for 2024, and not only that, abortion, but also for marijuana. Get young people out, and I'm sure that there'll be some kind of student loan situation that the Biden administration will give a shot at just before to get the youth out. They'll put together this coalition again, and abortion will be the leading factor, but democracy is up there as well. People aren't going to vote for Donald Trump because he's against democracy, and he's going to get convicted before the election.
Yeah. I feel like this guy, I must say, though, it's like one of those, monster movies. The guy will, he will continue to be a threat from whatever situation, house arrest or whatever he finds himself in. But Jim and I will go around and around on that because Jim certainly thinks I'm wrong about that, and probably Michael does as well. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.